Man, 2020 was something else, wasn't it, Brynn?
Yeah.
I think that displays everything beautifully. Yeah. Well, guys, we're happy to be back for season 2 of Soul Coaching, where we want to focus on the theme of expansion. 2020 was a rough year for a lot of people, and there was a lot going on. There was awakening, there was remembrance, there was healing of trauma. But what happens in the spiritual path when you get past that? Well, it's time for expansion in this phase. And so in season 2, we want to focus on topics that kind of embody or focus on this idea of expanding. We've thrown away some of the detritus, we've gotten rid of some of the garbage, and now it's time to see what we can do with this new creative power.
In season 2 of Soul Coaching, we hope to help you guys expand into the fullest, most authentic versions of yourselves, while also giving you practical tools to help you embody all that you have learned thus far.
It's going to be a great season, guys. As usual, I'm your host, Christopher Lee, joined by my wonderful co-host, Brynn McCalester. And in season 2, it's going to be all about expansion. We want to remind you that we are now on Hermit Radio, a subsidiary of LifeGrove, and we are looking forward to an incredible season. Let's get going. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Soul Coaching. I'm your host, Christopher Lee, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Brynn McCalester. Brynn, how's your Saturday going?
It's a going. I have lots of schoolwork and studying and tests and all that fun stuff this weekend, and my toddler has decided he doesn't like to sleep this week, so that's fun. But today's your birthday, so we first have to let our listeners know. Oh my gosh.
It doesn't mean that any of you are less, right? It's not what she was saying.
Don't take that the wrong way. No, it's Christopher's birthday today.
Yes, I'm 1 year wiser. Let's go with that, right? 1 year wiser, 1 year a little bit more tired. I'm tired today. And I wanted today to be about self-care for myself and just sit around doing one of my self-care rituals, which was just playing some video games, maybe reading some books. But I've got a baby that I've got to watch while the wife's at work. And then as soon as the wife gets home from work, I got to go run and help move a refrigerator for my mom. And then I have to come back and I have to change and I have to get the baby ready to go because then we have to go back over to my sister's house for dinner. When do I get my self-care?
Yeah.
When do I get my self-care? Anyways, so that is our topic today, guys. We're going to be talking a little bit about self-care. But, beyond self-care, I guess, the topic in general, it's very posh right now, right? It's self-care this, self-care that. Don't forget to do self-care regularly. And, ultimately, I think that's such an important process for us, particularly when we're talking about the theme of this year being expansion. Expansion, when it occurs, it's like a rapid growth phase, right? It's like growing pains. That's why it kind of hurts. It's not comfortable. And then after that expansive phase that occurs, what we need is some rest, some time to integrate, and some time to come to grips with whatever that expansion is. And it's great that this is coming back into public awareness to the collective, that it's required because we're caught up in this rat race all the time where we need to acquire more material or acquire more status or acquire more wealth or acquire more, just more. And so we're like rats in a hamster wheel, never taking the time to do the thing that's really important for ourselves, which is a little bit of love, a little bit of leniency, a little bit of patience, and to quite simply slow the fuck down.
Totally. Well, and I think it's important to find balance in it too. Because I feel like before 2020 hit, everyone was going, and like never taking time to settle into themselves and check in with themselves and take care of themselves. Not never, but like I feel like it was something that was definitely on the back burner. And then when the pandemic, like I feel like everyone was home and they were able to pour into themselves more and really tune up the self-care and pour into themselves. And now as we're kind of getting back to normal, if you will, I think it's important to find ways to find balance between both of those, because obviously it's not realistic to sit around all day and take bubble baths and do face masks, and like that's not going to happen every single day. But how can I infuse self-care, infuse things that will actually light me up and fill me up into my day-to-day life? Because I think so many people focus, like you were saying, on like the growth and learning new things and doing all the things. And so it's also important to give ourselves time to actually integrate all of that, because we are physical beings and we do need to integrate that in order to actually emit that light in the world.
I agree. And everybody say hi to Arthur.
Hey, Arthur.
See, he does not believe in self-care. And he certainly doesn't believe in my own. He's going through a very tension-grabbing phase, which is great, right? And I know that eventually I'm going to be sitting here going, I want that back. But right now, man, I just need some self-care. Away from you. Away from you. Just kidding. Anyways, yeah, I like all of that. And I think it's, self-care, like you said, it's not just face masks and massages. Um, rest is energetic, right? It's not necessarily an act. It's not even really physical, right? So it's not just cozying up with your snuggie and watching a TV show and giving yourself some time away, right? It's not escapism. Um, it's an energetic practice wherein we're retracting our expansion into the world, right? And it brings me to the idea of how chakras function in the energetic body. And one of the things that people don't really talk about a lot is that we have both an input and an output in those energetic vortices. The input being behind us, right, and the output being in front of us. We project into the world. I find rest being a retraction of that emission to a certain extent, a move inward, right? And so it has very little to do necessarily, in my opinion, at least, with the physical body. We, of course, have to maintain our physical body, maintain our appearance, all those sorts of things. Those are good things for us. But I'm talking about the energetic part of it. And I think it's vital to understand that we can still be doing physical tasks in the world while performing self-care, right? So it kind of goes into like this idea of mindfulness, right? We still have to do the dishes because we're parents. We have to clean the bottles and we have to take out the trash and we have to do all this stuff. But at the same time, how can we learn to retreat inwards while still performing #adulting? How do we take the experience of washing the dishes inward and start to reflect on our own life? How do we take the experience of the shower and turn that into an inner experience instead of what we normally do in the shower, which is either space out and think about all the stuff that went down yesterday that I'm still frustrated about, or all the stuff I got to get done later tomorrow. How do we navigate this realm of inner experience? Because that's, for me, that's what self-care is when you take the time to be with yourself.
Totally. Well, and I like that you brought up just like mindfulness and awareness. And I think that is so, so, so huge. I mean, we go through so many things in our day. I mean, getting dressed, doing our hair, brushing our teeth, like all the things that we think are just basic and normal, but those things can be self-care if you're mindful and if you're present while doing them. So like when I'm doing my makeup, I'm always channeling Reiki while I'm doing my makeup, just to like pour into me and be intentional about what I'm doing to take care of myself. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm doing extra things that I wouldn't normally do. I'm doing all the things I would normally do, but I'm being intentional and mindful while doing them. And I love that you brought up too, like kids too. And I feel like being a parent has really given me a lot of perspective on this too. Like so many of us as parents, if our kid cries, we'll grab something to wipe their tears, or if they are having a moment, like we find ways to comfort them. And I think a lot of us forget that we have the ability to nurture ourselves too. And I do a lot of like inner child healing through that too. Just like if I'm upset, grab myself a tissue and like take care of myself. But so many of us just like don't even think to do that because we're so focused on doing things for others. So when we can just be really intentional and mindful about doing those things for ourselves too, he's smiling, so cute. It can be super powerful.
Right. Yeah. And it's a fascinating topic because, like I said, it's all the rage. But I think that we kind of stumbled onto something here just while conversing about it. It kind of draws me to this idea of how Western medicine, allopathic medicine works, and how it's like we wait for a symptom to occur and then we address it with heavy doses of medication. And that's how I see self-care being portrayed, right? I'm so stressed about everything in the world. I need to give myself a bubble bath. Well, that's an extreme or an acute measure, right? And I have to medicate with something like marijuana or something like that, right? But, not saying that that's bad. I'm not saying that I'm not passing any judgment on it, but we take radical measures to counteract our radical move into this kind of stress response instead of taking preventative measures, right? And living mindfully and slowing down and not thinking about anything, but simply being with the experience of doing whatever chore or task you have to do is vital. Because if you do that, if you take the time to be mindful with every single experience, you're not going to find the same stress response. And then self-care itself isn't an emergency, right? It's not something that we have to engage in so that we can survive. It's not even really an issue because we're doing it piece by piece. We're seeing the doctor every, second of every day instead of waiting until an issue crops up, right? And this, I think for me at least, the most important version of self-care is being with or providing a sacred space within ourselves for our emotional responses to act themselves out. And I think that is like the number one cause of stress in general for the adult world, is that we're simply unwilling to be with our emotions. And when that happens, they become trapped in the body, they become stress response, they become illness, and then we're like, oh no, I haven't been taking care of myself. Well, duh, you haven't been letting yourself express.
Right. And feel what needs to be felt and being present. Yeah. Well, and I love that. And I think a lot of people, yeah, like you said, they overindulge, and it's like a emergency type of thing that they pull in. Like, oh crap, I feel like crap. I'm so drained. I'm so depleted because I haven't been taking care of myself. And so then they think that just by taking a bubble bath and doing a face mask one day, it's gonna fix everything, right? And I think that's super important to think about too, like how, like being practical about it and being preventative about it. Like, what can I do today to support me and fill me up that will help me maintain my energy rather than just like like up and down, and I think that's, yeah. And checking in with ourselves and being aware within ourselves, like what things fill you up and what things leave you depleted, and then giving yourself permission to do the things that fill you up every single day so that you have the energy to maintain where you need to be.
Right. It brings back this idea of daily practice.
Mm-hmm.
What we practice is where our energy is, or where it's going to emit from or come from. And I pulled a card. I'm pulling from the Sacred Rebels deck today for our. This is just the backside of the card, but the card was listening for truth. Right. And so it kind of, it guides me to speak about the receptive nature of self-care, where we're receiving, we're listening, we're being passive instead of active. Right. We need to listen to ourselves and listen to what our body and what our mind and our spirit is trying to tell us that we need. We all know what's good for us, right? When we do it, we know the difference between right and wrong for us, or out of alignment and in alignment is probably better because it's less judgy sounding, if you ask me. This is out of alignment for me because it feels yucky, right? Or, this feels really good. I feel empowered. I feel filled up when I do this task. And so the idea is with self-care, particularly preventative, is to fill your day with those activities. So meditation, yoga, mindfulness, gratitude is a big one. If you're grateful for all the different things, then what self-care do you need? Like just the idea of being alive really ought to be enough for most people. And I realize that a lot of people are going through deeply seated traumas that other people don't go through, right? And I'm not saying that anybody's trauma is worse than anybody else's. That's a judgment call, right? Spirit doesn't make that judgment call, but the idea of gratitude as self-care has been one of the most transformational in my life, because any event that occurs, if I can find a way to be grateful for it, all the stress melts away. A lot of the trauma goes away because I don't associate or judge the event. I just go, oh, okay, well, that happened. I'm still alive. I still have an opportunity in this next breath to shift, to change, to learn, to grow, to find better alignment. And that comes from listening, right? Listening to the truth. The truth of the matter is the universe brings you the proper experience at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so if we're going to act in resistance to whatever the universe is giving us, mainly in the case of self-care, again, saying, oh, well, the universe is giving me this, but I have to go to work and I have to do this so that I can get this, even though it's out of my alignment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Well, and that reminds me of something that I talk to a lot of my Reiki 1 students about. There's so much in life that we just form a resistance to, and we make it stressful for ourselves because there is a resistance. So going back to like, we're parents, we got to do the dishes. I can sit there all day and be bitter because I have to do the dishes, or I can sit there and be grateful for the fact that we had food to fill our bellies and we have dishes to feed our family on, and I have running water, so I'm able to wash the dishes. Like in everything I would have used to complained about, there's so many blessings there. And so when you can really start to shift your perspective, like you said, a lot of the stress, a lot of the trauma, a lot of the resistance can kind of melt away when you start to bring in that gratitude and just like presence too. So it's not such a negative experience. And so I feel like a lot of self-care just is perspective, having a more positive perspective and being mindful and being present with yourself as you go about your day-to-day life things, so that you can actually tap into that more blissful, present, aware state of being. Because it's within us all, and we don't necessarily have to do other things or go above and beyond, but rather just allowing ourselves to tap into that blissful state.
Yeah, it really is up to us. And, it's one of the things that I've kind of been battling with as of lately, studying the different esoteric arts and this idea of perspective and awareness and what we do with it, right? And it goes back to judgment. and whether or not we judge an experience as positive or negative, or even our mindset as positive or negative, is completely up to us. 100%. We are the decider and the co-creator of that experience, right? So an event happens. Name your event. How we respond and how we behave in accordance with that, whether we create resistance to it or whether we label it as negative and we assign a narrative to it, is up to us. So we have almost half, if not more, of the responsibility in that event, because we're the one designating what it means to our story, to our own individual story. And so when it comes to this topic of self-care, I wonder if this is some sort of universal mechanism that we have to kind of self-correct when we lose control of our manifesting or co-creative power. Like, is it just something that crops up when everybody forgets that we have control of all these mechanisms? That, oh my gosh, my job is so taxing and I have to do it because I have to do this and I have to pay rent and I have to do this, and it's all because of the system, or it's all because of the way that the life is, or the most evil statement ever. That's just the way things are. I have to do these things just because that's the way things are. And I wonder if self-care crops up as this mechanism from spirit to be like, hey, remember, you're the one in charge here.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and that brings up, I love that you said that too, because like, it totally is like law of attraction as well. Like if you're saying, okay, this event happened and it's going to suck, like I have to take a medical terminology test later today. And I totally am like in a state of resistance because I'm not a huge lover of tests, but I also know that I was like given the opportunity to go to school and be in this class and do all of this for a purpose. And so I can either be in resistance of it and be like, oh crap, I got to do this, or I could just do my best, be mindful, be present. I know I've studied, I know I'm ready, and go at it. But if you put out that energy of, oh crap, I have to do this, it's not going to be a pleasant experience for you. And so I like that idea of too, like self-care really is giving yourself permission to take back the reins and take back control of everything that's happening, and reminding you that the ball's in your court and it's not happening to you, but rather for you.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a hard lesson to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
To understand. It's a hard lesson, to know totally. That all of these things that have formed the story for you were to make you stronger, or to like staying up all night last night with this guy. It was to make me stronger. And if I can give thanks for that, then I can regain some of that power. So I just pulled another card. Dream a beautiful dream. Looks like we got some sacred geometry, maybe flower of life over the earth. I wonder what that means. What are you talking about, Spirit? How does this relate?
Well, and I feel like for me, that brings up a lot of like rest. I think people underestimate rest. I think we still live in a world where people are going. And I know for myself, I do not function well if I don't get enough rest. Zeke doesn't function well if he does not get enough rest. Right. And so I think it's something that people really don't take for or just don't appreciate enough. Because they think, okay, I'm only getting things done when I'm up and going and doing all the things. But I think it's also important in an energetic standpoint for us to honor our rest and to carve out the time to rest and sleep and dream, because a lot of the times when we're learning about these different things, we have to actually allow our bodies to integrate that into the physical realm, which a lot of times happens during our sleep, during our dreams, during our like restful states. So for me, that brought up a lot of like, it's good to sleep, kids, but it's also something that we should honor, not just like the stuff we do during the day.
Right. And when it comes to, let's just, take a minute to think about the spiritual pursuit, right? I've seen this happen a lot, when it comes to the spiritual community and how much it's grown, right? There's this almost materialistic perspective, probably based around consumerism or just capitalism in general, how we live our lives in the day-to-day, right? In the mundane, where our pursuit of knowledge or our pursuit of the spirit becomes an intoxicant or an addiction, right? Where we're dreaming a beautiful dream, right? We're trying to get to this spiritual enlightenment, but we overdo it, and we don't allow ourselves the time to integrate the experiences. You see it in the way that some people function with, like, say, Reiki classes. All right, you can be a Reiki master in 10 minutes. All I have to do is attune you, right? No, that's not how it works. Here's the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram and magic. Now you know how to summon demons.
Right.
No, that's not. It's not. All of these systems, all the esoteric systems, all the esoteric teachings teach you to be patient. Because the process unfolds at its own experience or at its own rate. And so progress is not something, particularly on the spiritual path, that you can force, right? You can't sit down with every book and suddenly master everything, right? It took Buddha forever, a ton of experimentation and study and internal alchemy in order to sit under the Bodhi tree for a second and realize what enlightenment truly was.
Right.
And we have to be, again, going back to this idea of co-creation with the universe, we have to rest sometimes. We put in the work, right? We're not going to, it's the flip side. It's one of two types of people right now in the spiritual community. I'm going to say an affirmation and wait for the universe to do all of it, or I'm going to do everything and screw what the universe has planned, right? It's a blend between these two things. Yes, I'm going to set my intention, and then I'm going to do the work, and then I'm going to sit back, and then I'm going to wait for the universe to do its part. And I'm going to receive that peace that the universe brings to me without judgment. And I'm going to say, okay, that's the next step. Now it's my turn. The ball's in my court. It's a dance.
Right. Well, and all about finding balance, like taking aligned action, but then also remembering that everything's going to unfold exactly as it's meant to, when it's meant to. And I always I had a friend in high school who, I know I've said this so many times, but it just like hit me. So imagine your life is like a river, and the more you try to grasp and control everything that's happening, the faster and more out of control it'll seem. So if you're trying to be like, hey, we're going to hit this step by this time, we're doing it, it's going to be out of control. But if you're able to take the aligned action, but then surrender, everything will flow exactly as it's meant to. And I love that because, yeah, like you said, there's going to be times of taking aligned action, but then there's also times of resting and integration. And it's about finding balance between the two. And I think there's a tendency to get really caught up in one or the other. Some people will be go, 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 go. And then other people will be rest. And they're never going out there, never taking aligned action, never doing the things. And so you really have to have a balance between both taking aligned action and resting, and the masculine and the feminine and the yin and the yang. Like, it's all about balance, because that's how you unlock your magic, right? He has something to say.
Yeah. What do you got to say, Bubba? I think he says, I'm tired of what we're doing right now, Papa. But, I pulled this card too, the third card of the set, collaborative dreaming, right? And so that just goes to show the cards and the universe are tapping into exactly the same vein that we are in this conversation. It is a collaboration, and a collaboration requires surrender. It requires trust. It requires patience, and it requires you to perform the best that you can for yourself so that you can show up for the universe, right? It's a relationship. And that's the most important relationship in your entire life, is your relationship with the universe and how you behave in that relationship. Do you act in resistance to it? Do you try to force your will upon it and say, no, it's going to be this way because I decided that, and I'm going to disregard all of the different lessons you've been sending me?
Yes. Well, and I love that so much. Yeah. And it's all, Yeah, learning to take both parts of it, learning to integrate the rest times, but also the go, go, go times, and not getting too stuck in your idea of what things should be. Because when you're taking the aligned action, everything will fall into place as it's meant to. And if you're taking the aligned action and resting, you're not going to feel depleted. You're not going to feel drained because you're doing what you need to do to fill up you and nurture yourself, right?
Absolutely. And it's all about paying attention to those moments, right? If there is something that's in resistance, you know the difference. Once you start to co-create with the universe, you look at it and you go, wow, that would have taken me X amount of hours or energy in order to accomplish, and I just got it done like it was nothing. Like there's a certain force. And then, maybe even the next day, I've experienced this week. At the beginning of the week, I was able to get like what seemed like probably 30 hours worth of work done in like a 4 or 5 hour window. I was hyper productive. I was in alignment with what I was supposed to be doing. And then as the week went on, I started to feel really drained, and then I started to feel sorry for myself. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like trying to force all this work. It was like, I got so much done. Now I can jump into the next phase. Now I can get this, I can ram this through too while I have this energy. And I didn't allow the time for all that work to integrate, to blossom, to start to germinate, right? Or ferment, so that the next stage could come about. It's a dance. It's for somebody like me who's ambitious and wants to see a shift and change in the world. I get really impatient with the universe because I'm like, dude, it's my birthday. I'm 36. I said that a lot of this was going to be done already. And I know I spent like 15 years living in resistance to what you're trying to do, but I'm on the path now. So let's do this. And the universe is just like, hold on there. Hold on there. But buddy boy, you just wait. And that's why it sent me a baby, so that I could learn patience
and slowing down. Yeah. And everything happens exactly as it's meant to, when it's meant to. And it's crazy to me because, like, I'm very driven. I want to hit my goals. I want to get there. I want to do the things. But it's crazy to me because I will feel like, okay, why is it not happening? And then as soon as you surrender, the universe is like, boop, there it is, right? Like, it's crazy how fast it happens when you give yourself the time and space to slow down, to surrender, and to actually integrate. And it's not something I do perfectly all the time, not something you do perfectly all the time. Like, it's always going to be something that we have to be mindful of and conscious of. And work on because we're humans, so that we're always going to have that little dance. But I think even just being aware of the dance and being aware of, okay, these are the things I have to do today. How can I do them mindfully? How can I do them and be present? How can I do it while still honoring myself and my energy, without feeling like I have to go out and do this, that, and the other thing to pour back into me, right?
Right. And it's I keep coming back to this idea of relationship because Spirit is screaming to me about it and saying, yeah, it's like, it happens when you forget that I'm part of the equation. Mm-hmm. You require self-care when you forget that you don't have to do it alone, right? If you didn't pick up the phone and tell me, hey, I needed help with this, you thought, oh, I can just do it myself because this is the real illusory part of the law of attraction, is that it's all me, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you can have the life, you can manifest whatever you want, and you don't need anybody's help to do it. You just do it yourself. It's intoxicating, and you're like, yes, I've done it, but you forget the other partner that was sitting there holding your hand, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, we're almost done. Hang on, we're almost done. But yeah, it's like, have you picked up the phone and called the universe lately? Have you said, hey, I need a break, man. Can you handle this next step? Can you handle this next project for me? Can you start bringing in the things that are going to help me to stop living in this resistance? I'm surrendering. I'm letting you take the reins for a little while. It's kind of like the famous Christian image of the footprints in the sand, right?
Yeah.
This is when I was carrying you, and the universe acts the same in the same way. That's how it functions. Whenever we're down, whenever we need that self-care, we need to surrender all that stuff to the universe and say, hey, it's not, I gave it to you. I did what I can. Now what's the next step?
Right. Well, and I love that idea of like the relationship with the universe too. And it goes back to what we talked about on the last episode too. Like we're all one energy. We're all connected. We're all intertwined. And so if I feel like it's me against the world, I have to do it all by myself, I'm going to be drained so much quicker and faster than if I actually allow myself to be supported by my angels, by my guides, by the people around me, by like everything that's already set up and placed in my life to assist me in wherever I'm at right now. And I think so many people just forget that we have that option. Like you said, like it's okay to surrender into it. It's okay to allow ourselves to actually be supported and remember that we're not in it alone.